Lime Rock for Grid Life, and this is the first time Grid Life has come here, and it is honestly the coolest motorsport festival. We have drifting, we have time attack, we have wheel-to-wheel racing, we have a concourse, we have amazing cars like this. We got Bill and Sandy. So I've actually featured one of your cars before, Bill, a long time ago.
240 RS Maxi.
Was that in the garage?
No, it was at New Jersey Motorsports Park with Redline Time Attack.
Okay, right.
Or no, it was Global Time
Attack.
It was like one of the first events they had.
Probably one of the first S-chassis Time Attack cars I've ever seen.
2005 was when it was built. And it was featured in Sport Compact Car right before they stopped in 2006. Or no, the
when you were at VIR.
Yeah, it was a VIR event at GT Live.
Well, as much as I like your S-chassis, we're not here to talk about your S-chassis. We're here to talk about your dad, Sandy's amazing BMW, which actually you had a lot of hand in building.
Yeah.
So this is the father and son team.
Yeah.
I mean, this basically goes back to when I was, just out of college. I actually saw these things race. And I told myself at the time that, someday I want one of these things. But it only took 40 years, or 50 years, really.
And the cost, like to buy a real one, they're hundreds of thousands of
Even
dollars.
the street ones now are going for $200,000. So I saw this thing in 2018 on Craigslist, it was up in Vermont. And it wasn't the right time because I had another car which Bill had helped me build, the Mustang. And some guy from Florida bought the thing thinking it was going to be a street car, but 4 months later, he put it on Bring a Trailer. And I saw it, and it still wasn't the right time, but he couldn't sell it. Nobody wanted it. And it didn't meet his reserve, so it took me 6 months to trace this guy down, because you can't, with Bring a Trailer, you have to be the top bidder for them to give you their name. So I called him up and I said, look, I know what you paid for it up in Vermont on Craigslist. That had to be your reserve. I'll give you that, I'll pay you that. And he said, okay. So a week later, I got on a plane, went down to Sarasota, and put this up on a lift because it looked horrible. It had a rattle can paint job, white paint job, but underneath it was so perfect. Mechanically, it was great.
Yeah.
It had a horrible electrical system, which Bill completely rebuilt, and I had it painted because I wanted this particular model, which was the only green CSL ever raced. Because Garcia beer was the sponsor from Germany, and that was the color of their beer can. So, every other one was either orange for whatever that Jägermeister, or white with the three colors.
So the body itself was the way you bought it then?
I bought it, believe it or not, 15 years before a fellow out in Colorado that makes all these flared fenders taken off an original car. He basically made this for himself, including the roll cage. And it sat there in his garage for 2 years, and he sold it to the fellow, a German mechanic in Vermont, who put all the mechanical stuff in, and then raced it at Watkins Glen for 10 years with a group that we belonged to, Com Sports Car Club. And I actually, in 2011, was at Com, and they were there with this car. So I had seen it before.
Do you ever think you'd own it?
No. I mean, it looked pretty ratty. I mean, it was...
Well, it was a good track car.
It was a good track car. But anyway, so it didn't take much to get this thing ready to go on a track. I mean, Bill put all the new electronics in it, but, it had the suspension and the brakes and basically...
Yeah, it had like good bones.
Good bones. And so now I've made it so that it looks like an exact replica of the Garcia beer car, which was the winningest CSL of all of them.
Besides the U.S. Navy stickers, they didn't have that.
No, they didn't have that. But that goes back to when I was in the Navy 50 years ago. 4 years on an aircraft carrier, so I am proud of that,
Yeah. Why did they call it the Batmobile?
I was talking...
The rear wing, this car was the first sedan ever to have a wing in Europe.
In 76.
In 72.
No.
They put one on to beat the Ford
the Capri, yeah.
And so they put the wing on, and Hans Stuck had crashed the car at Nürburgring. They put the wing on. He told him, look, we got to have aero. They put the wing on, and he dropped his time by 14 seconds. Just by having the wing and, the splitters and all that stuff. And Ford couldn't get their act together. and they never did put a wing on that year, and so BMW beat them in every race in Europe. But then Group 2, basically, they went to 24 valve engines, and they couldn't use them in Europe, so they came to the United States, and the first year out they won Sebring racetrack race, 12-hour race against Ferrari, Porsche, and everybody else.
Yeah.
With Brian Redman and Hans Stuck and Sam Posey.
So, Sam just saw this car.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cool.
He said, "Oh, I love this car," you know.
Yeah.
And
you got to take him around.
Well,
I think he already went home, but that would be cool to take
get him
out.
into the car would be a real.
Yeah, he could.
Well, he rode it with Michael Essa in his drift
That's
car.
true.
1,000 horsepower
That's true.
drift car.
He would love going out in this.
Well, you could take him around.
If we'll ask.
If he comes back tomorrow, you'll take him around.
Yeah.
Can we take a look at that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So the engine is a Euro M6 from like early '80s.
Out of an M6, which was a 635 car, a successor to this model.
The hood's a little flimsy.
So there was a 635, and then there was an M6, and an M5 was the BMW 4-door sedan. But you know, Bill put all new.
Yeah, the harness. We made a harness, and
it already had individual coils, which is unusual on these engines. They mostly had
there's 3 coils.
Well, they had distributors up on the front of the engine.
So there used to be a distributor up here. We put a cam and a crank sensor. The coil's from like a.
Yeah.
I want to say it's from a Renault, but it's like essentially a batch fire, or wasted spark. So there's 3 coils, 6 cylinders.
In this configuration with this motor, what do you actually use it for?
I mean,
I use it for track
mainly,
days, you know, with groups that do HPDE.
I don't drive it too much.
So I'm not racing fender to fender. I've never done that.
Got it.
You should.
It's too risky.
You should start
And I'm too old for that.
You're never too old.
You're never too old.
I mean, I'm having my 80th birthday in 3 months.
Oh, wow. I mean,
and Bill's 44.
43.
So I'm double his age.
I love this father and son combo so much. I absolutely love
you
it.
spend time around
You should hear us in the pickup truck when we're driving.
Yeah.
All I have to say is I hope when I'm your age, I'm still driving.
I know.
I intend to be doing this car for another 5 years at least.
Please, yeah. I mean,
unless I have
keep driving as long as you can.
As soon as I lose my focus, it's over. Then the car's his.
Right, got it.
Yeah.
But for now, enjoy it. Push this on the track. I want to see you push this.
And the sound is just music to my ears.
Yeah, he likes watching me drive it.
Yeah,
because then he gets to hear it.
And nobody else really gets to see these cars.
I know.
Because there's one at BMW's museum in South Carolina, and they bring it out every couple of years.
There's a couple at Monterey every year.
Yeah, but they're
from
West Coast.
Yeah, but up here you don't get to see
And
them.
they're so valuable that nobody wants to put them on the track.
Right.
So this is really a unique car because, quite frankly, it's not worth a hell of a lot of money.
Well, it's cool because it still gives you that feeling, right? It still gives you that nostalgia feeling. Like you said, you watched it race when it was brand new.
Right.
And after all these years, you're able to kind of have the essence of it in
which
this vehicle.
nobody else has able to do.
Yeah.
But with modern electronics.
Oh, yeah.
And slightly better suspension.
I mean, this is such a safe car compared to the original.
And this is more of a modern engine compared
Yeah,
to
so
what it
there was, like the cars that race, there was a 24 valve engine.
But they did it in the US basically because they couldn't do it in Europe.
Yeah, but even still, those engines are $500,000 now just for the twin cam engines.
And this engine had a lot of very sophisticated stuff done to it. I mean, quite frankly.
The has a ported head with a intake cam.
I mean, the head and the cam together cost $5,000 at Metric Mechanic.
Oh, we didn't have to pay for that.
No, it was already in it.
Yeah.
And it was fresh rebuild.
And then, so in this configuration, have you guys dynoed it?
Yeah, so it makes about 280 at the wheels. A good friend Franz Diebold.
Which is like 330 at the crank.
Yeah.
And then, so how much does this weigh?
25 or 6.
Yeah, it's
with
like
me in it, about
2,600.
2,600 pounds, and a
light.
modern M3 is 3,600.
So it moves out pretty good.
Yeah.
It's really fun to drive because the suspension's not too stiff. The tires don't have too much grip, but they have enough that it's very predictable. You can like drive very effectively with your foot.
And compared to,
Yeah, because one of the things that you've really updated is like the suspension, driveline.
Yeah, that's some NASCAR brakes.
Yeah, huge brakes and also huge wheels.
well, this
Yeah.
car, at most track days, this car has tires that are so much wider than anybody else.
What are
I
you
mean,
running
even-
I
in the rear?
think they're 335s.
They're
right?
335s, but they're 12.5-inch wheels. The only
pretty
more
heavy.
extreme CSLs were the ones that ran on Group 5. They had 16.5-inch wide wheels.
Yeah, because they these were never intended to have 18-inch wheels. What did they come
No.
with? 15?
Oh, they came with 16s
16.
Yeah.
all around.
Like
so
the
this
BBS.
is 18 in the rear and 17 in the front, and the only reason they went to 18 is that the only way they could get a 335 tire on it.
It's just so
It is really cool.
Well, I tried to make it authentic to the original car as much as I could outside.
What's cool is we love like these 80s, 70s, and 80s BMWs, but he got a BMW back in the 60s before they started importing them to the US in Germany,
Yeah,
right?
I had somebody buy it in Munich before Hoffman even brought them into New York as the first distributor. And I mean, the thing was not a very good car because it hadn't been proven yet.
Right.
I traded it in 2 years later for a Mustang.
6-cylinder Mustang.
Yes. Oh yeah. With an automatic transmission.
What? Are you serious?
Yeah. Well, live and learn. If I'd kept that car, they're now worth $500,000. The 1800 Ti's.
What transmission does this have?
So originally it was a Getrag 265 from essentially the US M3, which is an overdrive gearbox. We just recently put in the Euro M3 gearbox, which has a 1-to-1 fifth gear. The fifth gear was kind of unusable anywhere in the old gearbox, and now
And
you
third and
use-
fourth were really widely spaced.
Yeah, you'd shift from third to fourth, and it would drop like 2,500 RPMs. But there's some old, like, kind of 90s, actually that's like 2000s, Pi Research dash for all the sensors. Essentially the Life Racing ECU streams data to the dash, and that reads out temperatures, pressures.
Yeah, this is one of those cars where you could bring it to the track and you can guarantee no one else will have anything
Yeah.
like this. Yeah.
It's a
The
lot
only
of
other
fun.
one that I would ever see in the Northeast would be the Glavin one, and I've never seen it. So
Oh,
it was made up in New Hampshire by a vintage restorer,
yeah.
and I think they paid close to $200,000 for to have it built. It was built by somebody else. I mean,
But this engine makes just as much power.
oh yeah,
or
no,
more.
it makes more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the earlier ones of these had the 12-valve M30 engine, which essentially BMW used from the early 70s until the
And they put a
mid-90s.
mechanical
The
fuel
Kugel
injection in it
Fisher
to be
and-
historically correct, but this is so much incredibly more sophisticated.
Oh, well, it has 2 camshafts.
No, but it has the different electronics.
Well, yeah. I mean, you don't have to conform to vintage regulations, which opens up the brakes, the suspension, the engine management, and you can have the same feeling of driving the car, but just improve on it.
So cool.
Like the power steering's from an A-class Mercedes.
But that's really unique. I don't think any other CSL has that.
Well, yeah, I would.
We didn't want to
Did
drive
they
it,
even have power steering back then? For these?
No, not for the original ones. I think probably.
but
the
since
Group
this
5
came out of
ones.
an M6, it had a
Hydraulic.
steering pump on the flywheel,
Well, on
and
the
we wanted to get it
crankshaft,
off
yeah.
the engine.
Did it have that? Yeah,
Yeah.
it did.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for showing this to us.
No
It's
problem.
really unique. Yeah, it's just cool. It's just a showstopper. As soon as we saw this was here, I'm like, I have to shoot it. I didn't even realize you had anything to do with it, But yeah.
Well, Bill and
it's
I have
super
shared
cool.
a garage now for about 4 or 5 years, and we're just hopefully going to be building one in the basement of his barn,
Yeah.
so that we'll always have a joint garage
He
to house
can-
these.
he- I'll start working on it, and he'll get in his chair and kind of watch and observe.
Yeah, well,
I love this. Great father and son combo. So cool. Well, yeah, thanks for bringing this out.
all right.
No
And
problem.
we really enjoyed watching this on track.
Okay.